Assalamualaikum, very good morning. So first of all, thank you very much, Dr. Akmal Khalid. Yeah, Dr. Khalid from Malaysia.
Yeah, from Malaysia, yeah.
Okay. So let me introduce a bit biography of Dr. Akmal Khalid. He is assistant professor at the School of Information Science at Japan Advanced System of Science and Technology. He is a member of the Research Center for Entertainment Science, a member of the International Research Center for AI and Entertainment Science. He has obtained Bachelor of Science, Master of Science, and PhD degree from City Science of Malaysia in Penang. Okay. His work focuses on method of optimization and game informatics in the field of operational research and artificial intelligence technology. His presentation is AI technique, game informatics, evolutionary computing algorithm, as well as decision support system. In addition, his topic of interest include but not limited to manufacturing system advancement in scheduling and planning, AI system and technique, search algorithm, optimization technique, game analytics, and game informatics. A lot of game. Okay. So okay, without further ado, so we invite Dr. Muhammad Akmal Khalid to share his talk on two topics, isn't it? So okay, Dr. Muhammad Akmal, over to you now.
Okay, thank you very much, Prof. Shamsul and everyone here that organized this event. I'm happy to be here. So first of all, let me share my screen first. Can you see the slideshow, right? Not the.
Yeah. Yes, we can see the slideshow now.
Okay, all right. So okay, without further ado, let me start my first talk for today. Good morning, everyone, and welcome. And today I'm going to cover about the nooks and crannies of scientific publishing. Actually, this is not from student perspective, from general perspective. Actually, I forgot to change that. Sorry about that. Anyway, yeah. So my name is Muhammad Akmal. For those who don't know, I've been in JAIST for 4 years now. Hopefully, going to be finished soon and maybe continue in Malaysia. Hopefully, anyway. Uh, So these are the outline for my sharing today. What is scientific publishing? How to publish? Where and why? And after that, what we can do to help improve the publication. So scientific publishing can be composed of several steps and some level of details. But before we start, I think everyone have been in this shoes. I think sometimes you don't know what to write, or maybe you write a lot until you don't know, you cannot write anymore, or you just don't have any idea what to write at all. Really something that usually happen, or maybe the difficulty of transferring your idea to a paper usually uh, require a lot of effort from your side. So I would like to compose this scientific research process into from the very complex part into the simplest form. Basically, in research we have several basic components, what I call as observation. So this observation usually what we perceive our reality when we try to acquire knowledge by using instruments, sensors, and so on. And then we have another what we call as facts. This fact actually is a verified information of past and present that people have already proved previously, usually from your literature review and also some other past work. And then construct, usually the idea that you are currently trying to make it, become a new facts and new knowledge. So these are actually the basic component that you try to, you know, uh, incorporate in your research process. And basically, one way to approach this is to start by defining this concept or construct by using conceptual technique and operational technique. Basically, conceptual is what does it mean when you try to define certain things, which is what we try to associate the characteristic and meaning. And then operational is something that we as a researcher, how we can actually measure this construct, usually what are the tools that we can use and so on to make it objective or measurable. So for example, if we have this kind of research question, is intelligence lead to happiness, right? So the conceptual meaning or definition of intelligent in this context, I just took the intelligent part. Of course, if you have more longer research question, you have to define each of the term, right? So let's say you try to define intelligent itself. So conceptually, we can understand intelligence as a capacity of abstract thought and so on and so forth. But of course, in operational point of view, one way we can actually measure intelligence is to use some kind of test to actually get the result and so on to actually score that particular intelligence. So that's how we can actually do this. And then from there, we try to connect the dots, meaning that we try to link all the parameters, variable, argument, and hypothesis. Meaning, if let's say you have the idea, how can you expand it? How can you, find things that you can actually improve upon, or how you can actually communicate your idea. That's why we call here as communication. How you can communicate your idea that you have currently, that abstract idea in your mind, transfer to in a research paper. Three ways actually we can use a variable, which is characterizing that try to operationalize the construct. And then the hypothesis, usually I think in social science and so on, you use hypothesis to predict or try to uh, uh, test certain empirical statement so that we know we can define using variables. And then sometimes we can use argument as well, and we can also use this in combination. So variable can be independent, dependent, constant. Hypothesis can be specific, general, universal, and so on. So if we take another example, why sale did not increase? So here we have, one of the reason, maybe we can say that promotion conducted but no sale increase, right? So this might be the problem. And so why? So we can put the hypothesis something like promotion campaign is poorly executed, let's say. So these are what we call as inductive argument. So we try to use inductive argument to produce an hypothesis. And of course, we need to define the dependent variable and independent variable here, which is in this case, the dependent variable is the sale, and the independent variable is the promotion. Promotion can be can and can't be affected by the sale. So that's why it become independent variable. And of course, we can also use deductive argument, which is a reverse process, which is instead of let's say we don't know the problem, we try to find the problem. So we only have the hypothesis, so we use deduction, meaning that from the hypothesis, we try to deduce that these are the problem. So that's how induction and deduction works. And of course, again, we can actually deduce. If let's say you know the problem, you identify a new problem from the new hypothesis. That's why sometimes certain research have multiple hypotheses to actually, cater this kind of multiple scenarios and multiple hypotheses. And then, of course, when you write your research or you want to publish your research later, right, you need to, be, how to say, coherent and story driven. Because we as a human, we uh more attracted to something that are much more story like or storytelling method compared to data and so on. So of course, to be objective, we need some data, right? But we need to make all the things connected so that we don't make people lose track or feel that our work is unmeaningful or something. So in this way, we can actually connect the observation to the facts and construct, and we can actually identify this based on the definition just now, and conduct certain experiment so that we can communicate our idea or construct just now. And what are the finding here? These are how we connect everything into a coherent structure. Basically, what observation that we have done previously is should be what your background is, and your fact and construct need to be supported by previous work and gaps that you identify from the literature and so on. For this example, let's say sale is crucial in business survival. These are some of the background, or maybe some observation that you can see. But some sales depend on promotion, staff, and product. So how can we, improve this? Let's say improve the sale, measure the effectiveness of the sale, for example. And then what are the methodology we can use? One effective is actually to produce effective promotion campaign, for example. So of course, when you get your finding later on, you need to connect back to this research aim and objective to your previous work and get how this finding actually translate back to the previous work and your construct just now, so that your construct can become a new fact in the knowledge. And then when writing a research or maybe producing a research or publication, right, you need to consider some level of details that you want to incorporate in the paper. Example, you try to provide some facts or information. You want to convey a certain fact or information. It's good if you do a certain style of writing, for example, descriptive writing. And then from there, to be much more specific, we can organize this fact information into categories, group, parts, types, or relationship. So to be more specific, right, we can maneuver this, fact and information towards certain argument or point of view. And from there, we can actually, not only consider your own point of view, but of course from other people's point of view by considering critical writing. So this can be kind of like a very from general point of general style of writing to much more specific kind of writing. So think all of you will know that these are kind of like the paper structure, right? And this kind of paper structure usually start from a large scope, which is your background, right? And narrow down to by considering all the literature review, and your methodology will be very specific toward your problem. And from there, how it can translate back from your result and discussion towards the larger scope again. So to usually write this background or intro, we basically use descriptive writing. But for literature review, you need to consider everything. Meaning you need to organize the fact, you need to make your own argument, you need to compare with other people's argument and so on. And you have to be very precise and concise and descriptive of what you're going to tell. Then in your methodology, of course, you need to be very direct, very clear your information so that people can actually, reproduce your work. And later, how your result will be analyzed, how you can describe your observation. You can use descriptive or analytic writing. From your discussion, maybe it's good to instead focus on analytic writing and persuasive writing, because instead of just pursuing people to consider your argument, you need to support them by organizing this fact and so on, and provide a very clear description. That's why it's much more specific in this case. And when you come to the conclusion, it's good to be very clear and direct, not to repeat everything again and so on. So that's basically what scientific publishing is all about. Of course, there's a lot more can be done, right? But given the time, I don't want to cover too much on that. But anyway, so now I come to the how. So basically, you have all the facts, have all the content, you have all the structure of your paper that you're going to publish. So how can you actually improve it, make it much more effective, right? So I'll introduce a little trick or some let's say shortcut to actually help you improve this your publication. So this one called 3 point analysis, something that I borrow or maybe how to say I learned from another researcher that actually successfully published high quality technical writing previously. uh, he proposed this 3 point. First is the value of the work, meaning that you need to know what are the value of the work. let's say if you're focusing on benefit, you're focusing either for achievement, you're going to focus on contributing something. So is it a new function? Is it accurate? Is it stable? Is it trying to be much more versatile? Or you just simply, uh, producing a new algorithm? You proposing a parallel instead of, a simple algorithm. Or maybe you're considering it from the perspective of the geometric structure of the algorithm. So what are the value in that particular publication? So you need to identify that. And then what are the trick to achieve this value? Meaning that what are the solution? So this it should naturally leads to the value. For example, if let's say you have a new algorithm, right? So what are the new in the algorithm itself? For example, what are the component you incorporate? How if let's say you're not producing a new component, so what new from others perspective? Like for example, you're optimizing certain part of the certain process of the algorithm. You are mm, introducing new kind of measure or index within the algorithm, or you try to reduce the redundancy, remove the redundancy from the algorithm, for example. So these are the tricks so that how you can actually get the value from your work. And then the third part is the problem itself. So is it problem is the problem is solved from this value and the trick that you identify. So it's kind of the opposite of value. So you need to identify from relevant research, previous work, I think. And is it totally new, or is it something that uh, you know produce other kind of problems? So you need to identify this, and all of this kind of work is in a spiral kind of form, meaning that if let's say you solve certain problem, you can identify a new problem, and that new problem can lead to a new value of your work. For example, maybe continuation of your later work, for example. And then I'll try to cover one example using this three-point analysis. Let's say these are the paper on gamification in web-based virtual training environment and its effect on learning. So this I just get some random paper online and the one that have the most relevant from my own perspective, because I understand much about this gamification, so I can extract this three-point analysis. So the value in this work actually is the composition of gamification element. So how this gamification element affect learning. So the problem we identify is the gamification element affecting learning, uh, the learning environment, how it affects a learning environment. And the trick here actually is to use virtual training. You know how from this gamification, they don't produce a new concept and so on, but just introduce kind of like a training, a visual training environment to be incorporated into the gamification process so that learning can be better and so on. And then another trick is to provide uh, variation on the gamification intensity. So if we label this right, you have value is A, and the problem is B, and the trick is C, right? So when from here, actually, these are actually reverse engineering, right? So you have to imagine that, let's say you don't have this paper yet. So from this value, problem, and trick, right, you can actually construct your own title. Let's say, for example, you use the value plus trick to produce your title. So let's say the title A plus C or C plus A. In reverse order doesn't matter, but of course it kind of affect how you actually representing your element, meaning that you want to focus on gamification or you want to focus on uh, uh, let's say the method itself. So this just one example. So let's say the D1 is focusing on composing the gamification element. So you can see A, right, composition of gamification element, and C actually is the trick. So how you actually achieve this. by using virtual training and varied gamification intensity. Of course, you can have multiple traits, multiple value as well, right? So yeah, and even better if you can actually incorporate something, you know, let's say what are the new thing that you actually identify from this how to say uh point, meaning that you combine A and C plus new. So that leads to the original title of the study, which is the communication intensity, and so on its effect on learning using virtual environment and so on. So you can actually play around with this and try to identify the best title fit to the need of your study. And then of course you can further use this up to your introduction session actually. So you have your value, right? So how this value benefit real life or real world environment, and you need to provide a brief background. So these are just some background work that you need to do by yourself, meaning you have to identify relevant work, one or two key relevant works that the most important in your study on your in your paper. Then you can use that paper as a reference, and then use the A, B, and C just now. Not A, B, C just now. Sorry, it kind of like A is the who or when, do what, and how it was done, and focusing on what are the features, what are the contribution, and what are the unsolved problem from this relevant previous work. And from all of these, what are the most relevant to your work, and what are the problem that they have. And from there, you can actually, uh, focus on what your own study trick trying to produce so that you can actually achieve the value. And sometimes you need to include paper structure and so on, right? So usually it should be within one page, uh, as short as possible if you can. But of course don't be too short because you lose the how to say first impression of your paper. Because usually when people read your paper, they start by title, abstract, and your intro. You know, and some people like to go directly to intro first before they read the abstract, meaning that they want to see what are the what are the relevant of your work, how it benefit real life before they go to abstract to see whether you actually done some, you actually achieve some result and so on. If you done systematic literature review previously, you understand why this is important. So, in a way, each of these can be represented by one paragraph, one or two paragraph of your previous work, and then one or two paragraph of a summary of what are this previous work done and what are the features, contribution, and so on, and one paragraph about the relevance of that particular method to the problem and how you actually going to solve the problem. So of course, I won't cover everything about the paper because you have a lot of content that you can put in the paper, but these are just something that can effectively improve the quality of your paper so that it encourage people to actually read the paper and also accept the paper for publication especially. And then another important thing I think in the publication, right, uh, to actually how to publish effectively, right? So to mine the figure, meaning that it's important for you to consider what kind of figure that you're going to use to represent your data, your observation, and so on to actually be reported in your paper. So one important thing is to know your audience. So let's say if you're publishing in the proceeding compared to a journal, right? So you need to know what level of detail that you need to give, and you have to actually remember that figures should be self-contained. It should without a text, without any caption, right? Not caption. I mean, without the supporting text in the paper, the figure can still be understood by itself. That's what it means by self-contained. And then of course, different audience will have different interpretation. So these are example of figure that been done by say reported by News Straits Time, I think, if I'm not mistaken. You can see from the source. They show some 10 simple rules for better figures. I think very, very interesting paper. Because from this figure, you cannot get the exact detail, because although the message is clear, the precision is not, meaning that you cannot get the exact number of new cases and deaths here. You can estimate about maybe more than 50,000, but how much exactly? So you don't know. But the main point here is that the new case always higher than the death. So that's the clear that they want to give from this figure. Of course, this is good for newspaper, but for research paper, not really. You need to be very precise. You need to give the exact value so that uh, reader or your reviewer can actually understand what this figure is telling. Okay? Like I said, it's good for general audience like newspaper, like in the TV and so on. But for scientific publishing, you require actual numerical to give to value given elsewhere or here exactly. Of course, you don't have to cram everything in one figure as well. So, like I said, caption is not optional. Sometimes you need to explain uh, how to read the figure, and then to provide additional precision. Like I said, if let's say you don't want to put the number exactly number here, then it will cram the figure, right? So you might want to tell it in the caption. You want to highlight which one. For example, like here you want to focus on the prostate and the breast cancer. You know, they have a lot of cases, but not much there. You know, but on lung cancer, you can see that a lot of death and a lot of cases. So these are the main point, both men and women, for example, in this figure. So you need to describe this in the figure caption. Sorry, and of course you need to use kind of like a point of interest, meaning that you have to highlight them. You have to use red color, bold or something. Like you can see from my own slide, I use red color to actually highlight that's for general, and then some important point audience using blue. You know, and then sometimes some figure might be useful in different kind of interaction. For example, this figure show some dual particle system trajectory simulation. Because if you consider the figure on the left side, you don't really see the main point that you want to tell because there's a lot of line there, right? But or this might be good if let's say you want to publish in a journal because people can read this for longer time. If you want to present, right, for like doing a presentation or poster, right, this might not be good because people have a limited time to actually see this figure, right? So just put the bare essential, meaning that the most important point to be considered, to be put in the figure. And then avoid misleading the reader. So try to be as objectively as possible. Some tool might mislead, because you sometimes use different scaling method. For example, from this example, right, you can see that both of them are the same value, but because one of them use area, the other use radius, the bottom one, the right one use radius. So because of that, sorry, uh, because of that, kind of making the this looks much more distinct. Actually, this looks quite not much different. Not very significant different. Again, it's the same for this case. You can see that if you considering the range, if you say 0 to 100, right? The difference is very small. But if you considering the range from 80 to 100, then it become very big, the difference. But both of them actually are representing the same data. So it's really important to actually use the simplest plot that you can consider and not try to you know try to be as objective as possible, meaning that if one figure use 0 to 100, then all of them you should use 0 to 100, and don't try to uh, say crop the important point, because it typically cause some misleading message. Then finally try to avoid chart junk, we call this, because usually if you have a lot of data being compared together, right, we tend to put everything there, and this doesn't help people to read and doesn't help understanding at all. But so it's important, let's say, try to remove any decoration like this. Like you can see that this small grid doesn't really help to read the figure anyway. And since you're going to you just want to see the pattern of different chart, right? Maybe you can do something like the right side. You just want to focus on the line that on that series compared to other series. The other series, maybe you can just grayscale it to make it kind of like a background, so that you can actually focus on the important point, meaning that at 0.5 what happened between each of the series, and so on. Focus on the step size and so on. And then again, message trumps beauty. So if you have nice figure but people doesn't understand, it doesn't really helpful anyway. So it's good, let's say, the best practice scientific domain, right? You have this kind of uncanny valley, right? It doesn't matter if you hand sketch this or not, as long as it provide the main important message that you want to deliver, then it's good enough. That's what it means. So the way here actually is on the database metrics and target journal. So usually we consider our publication places such as proceeding versus journal. You have to consider the primary, secondary, and tertiary literature, and sometimes even grey literature. But this might not be good to be included. And this primary literature can be proceeding or journal. Usually have can be abstract, tutorial, and regular, and journal. Because you already know all these differences. Where the main thing here is that you have regular and special issue. So regular is when the journal publish uh, usually how many times depending on their regular rolling of the schedule. But the special issue depend on uh, a certain time limit. It kind of like an extended conference, meaning that it produce a journal publishing on a specific theme, but it's still published as a journal, not a proceeding paper. So I think it's good, let's say, if you want to move from publishing in the conference to a journal, you consider special issue journal compared to regular journal, because they usually took faster timing to actually review your paper. And then bibliographic databases, as you may know, you have Web of Science, Corpus, IEEE, and so on. You can, because all of these databases manage 2.5 million articles every year, and these are some of the top multidisciplinary research databases, and they provide stable digital object identifier, meaning that whenever they are published, they have their DOI, they will be there, and they will not be removed at all time until the end of time. So there are some that are much more discipline specific. For example, like PubMed, they are focusing on medical area, and ERIC more on educational area. And then you have databases versus search engine. So of course, Google as a search engine, right? Google Scholar as a search engine. Some may also be used, for example, to search other uh, to say scholarly databases like ProQuest, EBSCO, and so on. And then there are some, debate about the differences between Scopus and ISI. Uh, in essence, both of them uh, have some shared value, meaning that Web of Science is part of Scopus, but not all. Some of it are excluded from the Scopus because of subscription issue and so on. But one thing that differentiate them because of the coverage of the topic or the discipline. Usually Scopus will cover almost everything, but for sciences usually will be much more covered by Web of Science. And of course, you can see Google Scholar try to cover as much as possible as well. And of course, this depends on subscription that you have as well. So ISI is a subset that are much more science discipline, but Scopus are much more multidisciplinary. And then there are some issue about the differences between impact factor and site score. This both of them are actually cytometric index of a journal. They are defined yearly uh, by using yearly average number of citation to the recent article published. And there are some differences between how they are calculated. They are used as a proxy for relative importance. Some institution might be inclined on impact factor. Some might use site score. But the difference here is that how long they do this evaluation for this index, and what the database they use, and what are the items they included. So in a way, if you want to be much more comprehensive or much more, widely covered by the science community, site score is the way to go because it cover everything, uh, including editorial notes, corrigenda, retraction, discussion, and so on. But impact factor journal or impact factor sources usually only consider article reviews and proceeding. These are example between American Chemical Society and the Nature Group Journal. You can see that Nature have very high impact factor but very low site score because they have a lot of uh, editorial compared to the American Chemical Society. You can see American Chemical Society, they have high impact factor and also high score, high site score. So they are much more consistent. So it depends on what the institution incline on use as the cytometric index. Then journal quota usually is a specific ranking of the journal in the specific category of the topic. So usually, if you have a very specific topic like focusing on computer science, so in computer science, that journal will be some number of ranking, and by determined by this range. So if there are a top 25%, then they are Q1. Okay. What to note here is that high impact factor doesn't correlate to Q1. Some journal have very high impact factor, but they are not Q1 because they are not very important in the specific topic or specific area of the research. Some target journal you can identify, these are much more traditional way. You can identify from the citation that you or reference that you included in your paper. I done this before. Say I count the number of journal relevant in my paper. Then from there I determine which one has the highest percentage, and that highest percentage will be the target journal for me to publish. Or you want to be more challenging, maybe you can actually go for the least number of journal included in the paper. Usually the reverse are better, I think. Yeah. And then there are several journal recommender system to support your identifying a suitable journal for your publication. For example, they use title, abstract. Sometimes they ask for keyword or field of research and desired time. But although not really reliable or usable, but they can provide a good source of journal for you to get started. So some may provide, impact factor, time of for first decision, acceptance rate, and so on. So these are example from the Elsevier. You can see, I think it's Springer, not Elsevier, sorry. These are example. They provide impact factor, first decision. So you know that this journal have the least timing for you to get the first decision. But of course, the acceptance rate are very low, right? So it depends. What are the most important? What are the priority that you have? Yes, these are Elsevier. Elsevier provide both side score impact factor now, and they have acceptance rates, time to first decision. They give in the weeks, not days. So this bottom journal might be better in some sense for me, I think, but the acceptance rate are very low, you know. So it's very hard to actually get accepted. So yeah, and some recommended system actually provide, not only journal but also conferences. They can provide the timing, the date, and so on. So you're interested to publish in conferences, IEEE journal recommender also provide conference target as well. And I'll go briefly on the why for I finish my talk on first part. So usually to become the author depends on your contribution of the paper, your professional collaboration and your credibility. So usually this requires some kind of negotiation between the author. So usually these are the survey done previously. So who should get the credit, right? Usually the people that on this talk should be the author. But the bottom one might not be, but it depends. Sometimes they still be included because they are regarded as the important people within the research work. Because in computer science, maybe a programmer itself can be the co-author because the programmer allow for the experiment to be done, right? So in a way, not always. Then you have different type of authors, first authors, co-authors, corresponding author. Sometimes people ask, what is the difference between lead author or first author compared to corresponding author? First author is the one that become the first, uh, get the most credit within the paper. But the corresponding author is the one that actually correspond with the journal, meaning that any update, any review, any processes, any payment process and so on later on your publication will be responsible by your corresponding author. So make sure it's someone that actually, responsive and do, actually do a significant part of the work on your research as well. Sometimes we can give a ghost author, because these are, sometimes for professional collaboration, to start a collaboration between institutions, they include give authors to actually help start the publication process running between uh, never before connected between two institutions, for example. Then, of course, you do this because of the 3P reward and the people that actually become the authors. Sometimes can be the lecturer, can be the editor itself, collaborators, and so on. But of course, some might cause some conflict of interest, like editors. You cannot actually become the participant of the paper unless you are the guest editor of the special issue journal. Might be, you can be as well the author of the paper. Okay, so because the editorial peer review process can take a lot of time. That's why, in a way, because it requires to find suitable people to review the paper and making a decision. Sometimes it take weeks, sometimes it take months. So, and it involve more than two, 2 or 3 or more people, and because of that, it takes some time to actually corroborate the final decision. So you have to understand that. And then, if you feel that your publication takes too long, it's good for you to contact the editor to inquiry about the status of the publication. Even better, before you submit, even if you feel that you don't know whether the journal are suitable for publication, you can contact the editor or the assistant editor to ask the scope of your current publication, whether it's good to be published or not in this journal. You can give the abstract, you can actually provide a half draft and so on, you know, because they won't be the one that going to be the reviewer. So they will be objective about that particular part. So you can actually ask that, and some of my colleagues done this and successfully, accelerate the process of publication. Then you have to uh, focus on what are the access that the journal have. For example, like gold open access, diamond open access, and so on. Of course, you can actually find that information by yourself, but the important part is that open access journal usually tend to be faster, you know. Well, of course, tend to be expensive as well. So take that in mind. Then there are some predatory publishing and vanity press. The differences here is that predatory publishing usually have a very questionable editorial board, and they ask author to pay submission instead of publishing. Not published yet, they already asked for payment. So that usually the practice of predatory publishing. If that happened to you, then you need to retract your paper as fast as possible. And then vanity press is actually another issue on publication, because they are self-publishing. They're kind of like a self-publishing company, meaning that although they are legal, they are not doing something illegal. But the copyright owned by the publisher, and you have to pay for the editorial services and design. So usually, if you really want to do vanity press, it might be good if you only do some kind for example, like for book publishing, or your own personal development program and so on, but not for research paper. Because if you done this, it will impact the credibility as a scholar, and then the research work will not be recognized. And some people ask how to actually identify predatory publishing or vanity press. Usually they don't have any transparent editorial process, and they publish out of scope paper. Even I remember one MIT professor try to test the predatory publishing sources by sending a very, how to say, rubbish paper. They are not producing any result. They just do some kind of random writing and so on in the paper. Doesn't have any result at all. But they just randomly put a paper, randomly generate a picture and so on. Just send as a paper, and they accept the paper. So that's clearly a predatory publishing. So these are example, some of the predatory publishing and vanity press. So finally, when you actually done or able to publish, right? So you have to remember that publication is an art versus science. So sometimes it requires some time, some learning for you to actually improve, and you have to make a checklist to actually check everything that you done, and sometimes maybe from the successful cases, you can actually make it some kind like a template for you to actually publish in the future, you know. And you have to remember that when you try to publish, you're dealing with human, so try to make things easier for others, and always communicate when you have a problem. And then there are no one method for all. Sometimes some journal ask for this, some journal ask for this, some journal require this, some require journal this. Some journal require this timing, some require this preparation and so on. So you need to, improve yourself little by little. Then find what works best. For example, you prefer to work at some specific time, then focus on that, and then use certain tool to actually improve the publication. For example, like Turnitin to actually check for plagiarism, Quillbot to actually help you to rephrase, and Grammarly to actually check for grammar and so on. Even I don't know, if you try to use ChatGPT now, maybe they can help you as well. I tried and quite interesting case study, I think. And then of course, it's good for you to actually share your work and try to increase exposure of your work via digital networks, media presses release, and uh, publish in the preprint before the actual publication, so that in a way it increases the visibility and as well as making your research much more, how to say, uh, well known or well accepted to the research community. So that's about it for this part. I'm sorry, I go a bit overboard on the time, but hopefully it's useful to the participant. So yeah.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Muhammad Nas.